I think they saw what a hard worker I was. I think they thought that I had a gift for filmmaking. I was bringing these films in on budget, and they were good pictures.
Now then, tell me, what did Miggs say to you? Multiple Miggs in the next cell.
In 1991, a Welsh theater actor walked onto a soundstage in Pittsburgh, sat perfectly still behind a sheet of plexiglass, and delivered the most terrifying performance in American cinema in roughly 16 minutes of screen time. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't lunge at anyone. He barely blinked. And when it was over, he won the Academy Award for Best Actor with the shortest performance ever to take that prize. His name was Anthony Hopkins. The character was Dr. Hannibal Lecter, and in the 35 years since The Silence of the Lambs was released, Hollywood has spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to recapture what happened in those 16 minutes. They've made sequels, prequels, remakes, television series, and reboots. None of them worked, not because they lacked talent or money, but because they fundamentally misunderstood what made the original terrifying in the first place. This is the story of how a film that nobody expected to succeed became the only horror movie to ever win Best Picture, and why every attempt to franchise it has failed. In April 2026, Fathom Events is bringing The Silence of the Lambs back to theaters nationwide for its 35th anniversary. It's been restored in 4K. It's been picked apart by scholars, collectors, and cinephiles for 3.5 decades, and it still holds, not because of nostalgia, but because the specific alchemy of restraint, casting, and cultural timing that produced this film is genuinely unrepeatable. Every sequel proved it. The accidental masterpiece. The first thing you need to understand about The Silence of the Lambs is that almost none of it was supposed to happen the way it did. In 1988, Orion Pictures optioned the rights to Thomas Harris's novel. The project was originally championed by Gene Hackman, who intended to direct the film himself, possibly starring as Hannibal Lecter. Hackman even bought the rights in a 50-50 split with the studio. Then, sometime in 1989, he abruptly walked away. One account says he watched violent clips of himself in Mississippi burning and recoiled. Another says his daughter read the novel and told him point blank, "Daddy, you're not making this movie." So Orion bought out Hackman's share and offered the director's chair to Jonathan Demme, a filmmaker known for warm, quirky comedies like Something Wild and Married to the Mob. On paper, it made no sense. In practice, it was the single most important creative decision in the film's history. Demme's background in humanistic, character-driven storytelling gave the movie something no conventional horror director could have: genuine empathy. He didn't treat the material like an exploitation slasher. He treated it like a character study that happened to contain a cannibal. The casting was equally chaotic. For Lecter, Demme first approached Sean Connery, who reportedly called the script disgusting. Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, and Dustin Hoffman all passed. Hopkins got the role after Demme remembered his performance in The Elephant Man and recognized something crucial: Hopkins could project profound empathy and absolute menace simultaneously. For Clarice Starling, Michelle Pfeiffer was first choice. She turned it down because she felt the darkness was too overwhelming and didn't want to put that kind of negativity into the world. Meg Ryan also passed. Jodie Foster, fresh off an Oscar for The Accused, didn't wait to be asked. She had tried to buy the novel's rights herself, recognized the feminist undertones of Starling's journey, and lobbied aggressively until Demme relented. Foster had personal stakes too. The FBI had protected her from real-life stalkers, and she was deeply invested in portraying law enforcement with dignity. The 16 minutes. Hopkins is on screen for roughly 16 minutes. That's it. In a film that runs nearly 2 hours, the character who dominates every frame, every conversation, every hushed warning from every secondary character barely appears. And that's the entire point. Demme and editor Craig McKay built Lecter as a mythological entity. He's described before he's seen. He's feared before he speaks. By the time Clarice walks down that asylum corridor for their first meeting, the audience is already terrified of a man sitting perfectly still in a well-lit cell. Hopkins leaned into the economy of it. He decided not to research real serial killers, finding them too distasteful. Instead, he based his performance on the cadence of Bela Lugosi's Dracula, the precision of his old acting teachers, and one devastating choice: absolute unblinking stillness. But the real genius was Demme's camera. Instead of standard shot reverse shot, Demme and cinematographer Tak Fujimoto used what critics now call the Demme close-up, framing the actors staring directly down the barrel of the lens. It eliminates the safe distance of a voyeuristic observer. You're not watching Lecter interrogate Clarice from across the room. You are Clarice. His eyes are locked on yours, and the plexiglass between you feels like nothing at all. Demme did the same thing during the escape sequence. He refused to show the graphic violence, relying entirely on the aftermath and Howard Shore's operatic score. What you don't see is infinitely more terrifying than what you do. Every sequel that followed forgot this. The Coronation and the Controversy. The Silence of the Lambs was released on Valentine's Day, 1991. It grossed $272 million worldwide against a $19 million budget. Adjusted for inflation, that's somewhere north of $600 million in today's dollars. And then it did something that no horror film has ever done before or since. It swept the Big Five at the Academy Awards. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay. Only two other films in history had accomplished that. It happened one night in 1934, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 1975. As of 2026, no film has done it since. That Oscar sweep permanently elevated the film beyond its genre. It wasn't a horror movie anymore. It was prestige cinema. And that coronation became a curse for every sequel, because nothing that followed was being compared to other thrillers. It was being compared to one of the greatest films ever made. But the film was also immediately besieged by controversy. LGBTQ+ activists protested the Academy Awards, arguing that Buffalo Bill, a cross-dressing serial killer who skins women to build a suit, perpetuated transphobic tropes linking gender nonconformity to violent psychopathy. Defenders pointed to dialogue where Lecter clarifies the character is not a real transsexual. Critics argued that nuance was lost on general audiences. Demme initially pushed back, then came to understand the validity of the criticism. His very next film was Philadelphia, a landmark AIDS drama starring Tom Hanks, widely interpreted as a direct corrective effort. The franchise graveyard. After the Oscars, Hollywood spent 3 decades trying to turn lightning in a bottle into a product line. Here's how every attempt went wrong. In 2001, they made Hannibal. Demme refused to return. He was reportedly repulsed by the novel's gore. Jodie Foster walked away, later saying that Clarice meant too much to her and Demme to trample on the character. They recast with Julianne Moore, brought in Ridley Scott to direct, and made $350 million worldwide. But the Rotten Tomatoes score dropped from 95% to 39%. The psychological restraint was gone, replaced by European travelogues and Baroque violence. In 2002, Red Dragon brought Hopkins back a third time. Brett Ratner directed. Edward Norton starred. It was competent and made $209 million, but critics noted it felt manufactured, a franchise product that inflated Lecter's minimal role from the source novel into a starring position, violating the restraint that made the original work. Then came the disaster. In 2007, Hannibal Rising tried to explain Lecter's evil through childhood trauma, Nazi soldiers eating his sister during World War II. The studio had literally threatened Thomas Harris. Write the origin story yourself, or we'll hire someone else to do it. Harris complied. The result held a 16% on Rotten Tomatoes and grossed just $82 million. By reducing an unknowable monster to a sympathetic revenge plot, they destroyed the very thing that made him terrifying. Television fared no better. Brian Fuller's Hannibal for NBC gave Mads Mikkelsen the role and leaned into surrealism and homoerotic tension. It was brilliant, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, but low ratings and piracy killed it after 3 seasons. And a bizarre rights split crippled the franchise. One company owned the Red Dragon characters, another owned the Silence of the Lambs characters. Fuller's dream of a fourth season with Mickelson and Zendaya as Clarice remains trapped in legal limbo. Meanwhile, CBS launched Clarice in 2021, legally prohibited from even mentioning Hannibal Lecter by name. Without its central foil, it became a generic procedural and was canceled after one season. The 4K restoration. While Hollywood kept failing to franchise the film, physical media collectors were preserving it. In 2018, the Criterion Collection released a 4K digital restoration approved by cinematographer Tak Fujimoto. In 2021, Kino Lorber issued a 4K Ultra HD with Dolby Vision, though a color timing error washed out the asylum's red lighting. Arrow Video corrected those errors in a 2024 UK release that cinephiles now consider the definitive home video presentation. These premium editions consistently sell at $30 to $40 a piece. In an era when streaming is supposed to have killed physical media, collectors keep buying because they refuse to trust a compressed algorithm with a film this precisely composed. And in April 2026, Fathom Events brings the film back to theaters nationwide for its 35th anniversary, proof that certain films demand the communal, overwhelming scale of the cinema screen. Why it cannot be replicated. Every failed sequel proves the same lesson. The magic of The Silence of the Lambs was not the character of Hannibal Lecter, it was the architecture around him. 16 minutes of screen time. A director from comedy who treated a cannibal story like a human drama. A leading actress who poured personal trauma into the character. A cinematographer who broke every framing convention to put the audience inside the interrogation. And a cultural moment, the post-Cold War shift from foreign superpowers to the intimate domestic horror of the serial killer. Every sequel reversed the formula. They put Lecter front and center. They explained his evil. They showed the violence instead of implying it. They replaced the Starling-Lecter dynamic, the only relationship in the film where a man treats Clarice as an intellectual equal, with spectacle. And every single time, the terror evaporated. Because the fundamental rule of cinematic monsters is simple. Overexposure kills fear. The less you see, the more you dread. Demme understood that. Nobody who followed him did. Anthony Hopkins has called what happened in 1991 lightning in a bottle. He went back twice, in 2001 and 2002, and both times proved why you don't reopen a closed chapter. The Silence of the Lambs survives because it is complete. It doesn't need a sequel. It doesn't need an origin story. It doesn't need a streaming reboot. The terror lives in the restraint, in the silence between the words. In the 16 minutes where a man sat perfectly still and made 60 million people afraid to look away. 35 years later, Hollywood is still scared of Hannibal Lecter. Not because they can't afford to make another version, but because, deep down, they know they'll never get it right again.